Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 4 of Lifestyle and Career Development. We're going to go ahead and dive right on into the topic for the day. So again, welcome to week 4. We're going to be talking about assessments in particular. So we'll start off by looking at intake assessments, and then we'll also be assessing and looking through some standardized tests that we can utilize within career counseling. And last but not least, we'll also talk about career sorts. So with that being said, huge thing here. We're in chapter 10. We have made it through this book very quickly. So let's go ahead and see how we initially will start off that intake assessments. So really the purpose is just gathering all kind of information. Very similar to any other type of counseling where we want to gather as much information as we can so that we can really support the person, right? So that means learning about their background. What have they done in the past career-wise? What are some things that will affect their career, right? Sometimes it will depend on how much education a person has. It depends on, family situations, on what kind of work they can do, right? So, for example, someone who has a family might not be able to have a career that's heavy into traveling, even though that might be something that they're interested in. So, we're taking all this information in and gathering it and really putting it together to make sense of what would be a good fit for that person based off of their information. So when we are doing that intake, we are looking at so many different components here, right? So we are looking at them as a whole person. We are thinking about the emotional, the cognitive, the behavioral aspects of who they are when it comes to career planning, right? Make sure that it's a good fit. So all of these things are going to be important. We also want to think about their background, any kind of personal information that can be helpful, right? So we do want to gather these things. And I know it looks like a lot, but we do gather it fairly quickly. We ask the right questions, we're going to be able to actually get a lot of insight into these different areas. And then also, we do want to ask some career-specific questions as well, too. Make sure that we are aligning it when it comes to their interests, their values, their personality. So all of these things are helpful because it paints a full picture of the person, and it helps us to really help them to understand what their next steps could be. So when we put it all together, it really allows for this holistic approach to happen, right? We're able to really see things in its entirety, right? In a way that we might not have if we haven't done all of these parts here. So it's really important that we do this. This intake helps us to really piece it all together from the start. And then we gather information as we go too, but really have that information from the beginning helps us to be better prepared as we're working through different things with them. So as we go into chapter 11, we start to see additional assessments popping up, right? So we do have different types of assessments that are going to be really helpful when it comes to different aspects of the person, right? So for example, we have career decision-making assessments. These are going to be really geared towards helping them to be prepared to make that decision, right? And identifying any barriers that might be hindering them from making that decision. We also have assessments that are dealing with selection. So really figuring out what are your selections. This includes your interests, your personality, your values, your abilities, as well as your aptitude. So there are so many different assessments that can fall into these different categories, right? And so this helps us to really get a bigger sense of, okay, out of these things, how do we make sense of what could be a really good fit for you, right? So what are you interested in? What's your personality like, right? I know one thing that I love about the Myers-Briggs is it teaches us that, yeah, just because a person's personality a certain way doesn't mean that they can't go into a profession, but they just might do the profession differently, right? So we learn a lot about them. If we think about aptitude tests, we are exposed to those really early on in life, right? Because we take tests, right? Standardized testing when we're in school, and it helps us to kind of figure out, okay, how is this person going to fall in certain areas, right? We take abilities tests. Again, we do that in school too, right? Figuring out, okay, exactly how are you going to fall in different areas. So these things are things that are already a part of a lot of our lives, even early on, and we didn't even realize that this does play a role within career choice as well. Last but not least, we also have the category of adjustment assessments. So this is really about making sure that we know the environment and helping them to identify any stressors that could be in the environment so that we can understand it better, right? So one assessment that I definitely give out quite frequently is burnout assessments. That helps us to figure out, okay, what's going on right now? Are you having a lot of the emotional aspects that can come with burnout? Or is it more of the, cognitive fatigue, right? So we have to really pay attention to those different things because that does play a role in how a person is able to sustain within a profession. All right, so now we go into chapter. All right, so now we go into chapter 12, which is going over cart sort. So these are the early pioneers within this. So we have Lena Taylor. So Lena Tyler. She emphasizes values and traits, whereas Robert really was about, putting it all together, right? So the early adopter of this. So with this, we notice that there are some modifications that did take place. So we do want to make sure that it is modified, right? So that we're understanding what our clients' needs are as well as what their goals are for counseling. So different things will be more helpful than others depending on what the goals are. So as we really think about cart sort, it does come from theories, right? So it's that the trait factor theory. It also comes from learning theories, right? So we want to make sure that we don't just ignore the fact that it's taking theories and putting it into practice. So that's how it can tap into different aspects and really help us to help our clients make really informed decisions about their careers. And how this is used, I'm not going to go over every one of these points, but this is helpful, right? Because when we go into utilizing different tools, we want to make sure that we know exactly how to put it into practice. This is going to help us to really understand that there are processes that go along with any kind of assessment that we put in place. So all of the assessments that we have looked at today, we do want to make sure that we're administering them and interpreting them well so that we can get accurate and helpful information as we go through. Well, that is everything that I have for this presentation. Just going to go over this week's information for week 4. I will be doing another video this week as well too, as well as putting together some practice for the NCE questions for career counseling. All right. Well, I hope you all have a great week. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, please let me know if I can help in any way.